Good morning and welcome to the 2020 annual meeting of the Society of Georgia Archivists. And thank you for joining us for our 10 a.m. session on the last day of the conference. I am Autumn Johnson from the 2020 SGA Program Committee, and I will be serving as your moderator for the next 45 minutes. This session is the second of our short take presentations. This session will feature 3 short form presentations, each of which will last about 5 to 7 minutes, followed by a single Q&A period for all of our presenters. Our first presenter this morning is Jen Bileski from Lyrasis, who will be speaking on their efforts to fund innovative efforts in the GLAM community. Thank you very much for speaking with us this morning. I will hand the session over to you now, Jen.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for that wonderful introduction. So thank you for being a part of SGA today, and I'm excited to talk to you about the Lyrasis Catalyst Fund, Funding Innovation for GLAM Communities. GLAM stands for Galleries, Libraries, Archives, and Museums, and this is a funding opportunity, really no strings attached, and I'm going to tell you how you can get involved and how Lyrasis can fund your innovative project or idea. So first, before I get started on the Catalyst Fund, I just want to give a quick mention of the overall Lyrasis message and who we are. We have a lot of members across the globe, and many members of Lyrasis are here in Georgia. We are a global organization. We have about 1,000 GLAM members all across the globe. And we have about 4,000 users worldwide. The difference is members pay membership dues and they have access to all Lyrasis services. And 4,000 users worldwide, they might come to Lyrasis for a specific purpose, maybe a project, maybe a class, maybe to host. We are an open source leader. We support 9+ open source programs like ArchivesSpace, Islandora, DSpace, and more. We feel we are a community convener in that we bring together a lot of open source leadership. We provide a lot of face-to-face learning opportunities as well as virtual, especially in the time of COVID. And we are unique in that we have a leader circle, and our leader circle are our top members who pay a little bit more in membership dues, but they have a lot of voice. And one of the programs that they manage along with Lyrasis staff is the Catalyst Fund, which I'm talking to you today about. So the Catalyst Fund is money. It is designed to foster innovation, leading to new products and services to be distributed amongst all members of GLAMs and knowledge communities worldwide. This is seed funding. So we are looking for great new ideas. They can be anywhere from very small projects to very large projects that solve a problem that we have in the GLAM community. And not all problems are bad. There are a lot of positive things that we would love to do if we just had a little bit of money. And there are some big fixes that we want to fix to kind of make our job easier to gain access of knowledge and access to all the things that we do within GLAM. So this is what it is. It is seed funding to provide money for you to do really great things within your community. Capital for the Catalyst Fund comes from the $1.2 million member-focused research development and innovation budget we have here at Lyrasis. We are a member organization, as I just mentioned. We have governance as in a board, and they have provided us the yes vote to always have $1 million each year to have money for the Catalyst Fund for you. Since 2016, we have, which is when we began the program, we have awarded over $500,000 in award funding to over 20 organizations. All Lyrasis members can apply, and as I mentioned, we have a lot of members in Georgia, so most likely you are a member of Lyrasis already. If not, you can speak with me via email after SGA, and I'll be happy to talk to you about how you can join. Or if you're already a member of Lyrasis. Applications for the Catalyst Fund open every January. We'll be opening the cycle for application season January, I believe, 7th, and it runs until February 20th. The application is very short. It is one page. It is a Google Doc, I believe, and you have 1,200 words to describe your project. Very simple. So some example Catalyst funded projects. If you were with us on Wednesday, and if you attended Cliff Landis and Allison Smith's presentation on Gantt, the Using Linked Open Data and Statewide Partnerships for Georgia Natural, Cultural, and Historical Organizations Disaster Response, that was partially funded by a Lyrasis Catalyst Fund. So you can see their description of the project, which they gave us. They were awarded $16,000 to help them create that wonderful database that all of you saw on Wednesday. Another example of a Catalyst Fund project that we funded was from the University of Virginia. They received $28,000 to help with their digital collecting in times of crisis. And you can see once a Catalyst Fund project is complete, you will be able to access on the Lyrasis website video of their presentation, their white paper, any of the tools that they use to create their project, and that will be happening with Atlanta University Center as well. Atlanta University Center is just wrapping up their project, so they have still time to submit, their GitHub information, the code, and all the things that help them create this great database for us. So again, it's share and share alike. That's pretty much the only string attached, is that if you are awarded a Catalyst Fund, you give back to the community. I hope I have one more minute to go through this really fast. If you want to get involved with the Catalyst Fund, but you're not ready yet to propose an idea or innovative project, we still seek your expertise. No membership required. You can become a reviewer. All reviewers review proposals. They give critiques. They also rank those proposals, and only the top 10 ranked proposals go before the leader circle, who vote on which projects get funded. And you can find out how to be a reviewer. You can find out more about the Catalyst Fund criteria and ranking on the Lyrasis website. And for more information, please give me an email anytime after SGA. I'd be happy to talk to you about membership, applying for the Catalyst Fund, or how to be a reviewer. And you can find more information just by Googling Lyrasis and Catalyst Fund. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Jen. Hopefully our large room of attendees will take advantage of that. If you are just joining us, just a reminder that we will hold all of our questions for all of our presenters until the end of the session time with a single Q&A panel. So with that, we're going to move on to our second short form presentation. And our next presenters this morning are Christina Lang from Georgia State University, Melanie Vincent and Danielle Grismeyer from Georgia Highlands College, who are all going to speak with us on resurrecting the Georgia Highlands College archive. Thank you very much for sharing with us this morning. I'm going to go ahead and turn the session over to you three.
So this morning, Danielle Grismeyer, Christina Lang, and I are going to talk about how we are working to bring Georgia Highlands College Forgotten Archives Collection back to life. So Georgia Highlands College is an access institution that serves more than 6,000 students in Northwest Georgia. Our library holds the institution's archives, but without a dedicated archivist, the collection has stood dormant for many years until first Christina took an interest in the collection, and then I picked up where she left off once she moved to a new institution. So I will let her talk about the beginnings of this process.
Hi, this is Christina. Can y'all hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Yeah, great. So my goal at the beginning of this project was to jump right into preserving everything immediately. And with such a large backlog and no good policies to guide me through the process, I was quickly overwhelmed. After attending the Georgia Archives Institute and an archival theories and issues class, I gained a much better awareness of archival principles and practical knowledge. And this helped me to realize that I needed to formulate a plan to submit for approval before anything else. And this really helped broaden the scope of my goals and also narrowed my immediate focus. And this plan included space, security, grants and funding, records management, policy, and preservation. One area where a lot of these intersected was communication and policy. Communication within and outside of the institution was key in establishing how records management functioned at the institutional level, as how it regarded the archives and the University System of Georgia, which is over both the college and the Georgia archives. Communication with external donors was also crucial. We needed to be able to establish ownership of the contents of our own archives so that we could do everything we needed to do with the collections. And this would be stuff from digitizing collections for preservation and accessibility to being able to deaccession items when and if we determined they didn't belong in the archives. To maintain the safety and integrity of the archives going forward, security, preservation, and general self-assessments needed to be conducted as well. And this was so that we could identify problem areas and ensure both that the archives and the college were in compliance with the system policies.
My name is Danielle Griesmer. So I serve as the archives assistant and have been since the spring and summer of 2019. So first of all, with the archives, we needed to establish what our priorities are to revive this collection. And so first what we had to do is we had to work on standardizing records, then processing backlog, and then finally monitoring security and continued preservation. So our first step was we needed a record of what is housed in the archives just from the very beginning. So our solution to this was what we call our quick box list. And our quick box list we're hoping can eventually turn into a finding aid, and that's just our record of what is actually housed in our collection. Next to the process was to process the backlog. So in adjacent to the quick box list, we also have a processing room document that serves the same purpose of what is in our processing room and whether we need it or not. Third, and I would say that this is the step where we are right now, is our weeding and deaccessioning any unnecessary material. So whether we have too many copies of one thing or we have something in our collection that really just should not be in our collection at all. And then lastly, this is what we are aiming for in the future, and that's to return to an official operation process where we know what needs to be accessioned and we have preserving measures. And some of these preserving measures will be scanning our fastest deteriorating documents, which is our school newspapers, and also just continuing to monitor humidity and temperature as we do not have the most ideal archives location. So eventually the goal, I think would be the end goal, to allow access to this collection, to open it up to students and faculty and staff for research purposes.
So since GHC does not have an archivist position, organizing and preserving the collection became a passion project for Christina and then me. We had to find time in our schedules to dedicate to archival work. Also, the institution's 50th anniversary is this year, which helped in getting a part-time position, archives assistant, which started out as a student position to help organize and process our extensive backlog. But we did manage to get the part-time position, which is Danielle's now. But how did we actually manage that? We worked on building inter-college relationships. The library dean talked with GHC president about the importance of archival work and how the position could be a great learning opportunity for a student, which is how she ultimately ended up with the position and helping us out. I have also spent a lot of time working with our public relations department this year to help build our archives collection and build information and support about our collection, which has gone a long way in justifying time spent on our archival work at GHC. And it has also helped us gain a few vital supplies since we don't have a budget, such as a scanner to help digitize our collection and other items to ensure the preservation of our collection. So that's it for our short presentation today. Thank you for joining us. If you want to reach out afterwards, you can find all of our contact information here. Thanks.
Thank you so much for sharing all that work you guys have been working on over the past couple of years. It's no small feat. We're going to jump into our third and our final short form presentation. Our final presentation is led by Kathleen Shannon of IACP, who'll be speaking to us on transferable skills and digital asset management work. Kathleen, I'm going to turn things over to you now.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone, to everyone who's attending today. When we were discussing what we should present here, we had initially thought we're going to talk about the different positions that are available in digital asset management and how they relate. Once we kind of scaled this back, we really just decided to do sort of a quick hit on why archivists and librarians are uniquely suited for working within the digital asset management field. So first of all, what is DAM? This is just a quick primer on digital asset management. I fully expect that everyone in this conference right now has worked with digital media in one way or another. It's pretty inescapable these days. And you'll also hear us talk about DAM as a practice as well as a technology. And you'll hear that it's very often a system that houses all of the assets that we work within. But of course, there's the practice of DAM as well. And I'll be speaking a little bit on both, but mostly related to the practice. And a couple of kind of little clarifications. If you hear me talk about a MAM, that's more related to, for whatever reason, systems that work primarily with video have taken media asset management system rather than digital asset management system. So if you hear that, just realize it's essentially the same thing, just with slightly different purposes. And again, you'll hear DAM applied very often in the context of marketing and product communication, but really digital asset management is needed everywhere. I have a hard time thinking of any company or organization or institution that does not need digital asset management. So regardless of what it is that you are housing, that you're collecting, that you're distributing, whether it's like project files, videos, music, still images, product packaging, the principles of organizing and distributing your assets to your intended audiences does remain consistent. So again, these are just sort of things that we like to think that DAM can do. You're going to preserve assets in artifacts in a form that allows for easy and accessible distribution, like now, immediately, and sets it up to be future-proof as well. A lot of DAM really focuses on making sure that assets can be reused for different purposes and different channels. If you have a product shot of a cup of coffee, say, for instance, I'm currently working on a Starbucks project, they need that for their mobile order pay app. They need it for their website. They need it for their menus if and when you can actually go back into a store and look at a menu. And all of those require different formats, different sizes, and digital asset management is the art and science of making sure that all of those exist and can be distributed efficiently and make sure that they stay within the product guidelines. You'll hear single source of truth a lot. That is to make sure that people within the organization or without the organization can have access to the most updated and relevant assets. You don't want someone using an asset that was created 5 years ago for a product that you no longer even have. And then of course, also rights management is a big part of digital asset management as well. So with that sort of basis in mind, what are the skills that the DAM field requires? metadata. Everybody here works with metadata, and of course, provenance is just the beginning. DAM metadata schemes and taxonomies are largely driven by the purpose and the audience of each DAM system. If your audience is primarily external, for instance, if you're sharing content with a consortium, you're really looking to beef up your online presence or your donor outreach, you really want to make sure that you can distribute that to as wide an audience as possible. And you're going to use different standards, or you're going to use different metadata than you would if you're working with an internal team. For external audiences, very often you do want to use a standard, whether it's Dublin Core, RDF, anything that needs to be shared in a larger setting, you do want to rely on standards as much as possible. Now, a lot of DAMs do work just for internal user groups and systems as well. A lot of times you are feeding an organization's content management system so they can put it on their website. You're feeding a product management system, and you're housing that information about the assets as well, so that you can automate the distribution. So you don't have somebody who is looking for this shot coming to your DAM, downloading it, taking it to their own system, uploading it, and then you make changes to that asset, or there's a slight change in the product, and then that person has to come back, download the asset, re-upload it, change it. You want these seamless connections so that it can work easily and everyone always has the most updated version of your assets. And of course, that really drives reuse and collaboration as well. Particularly in COVID times, we are finding that companies don't really have the ability, even if they do have the budget to go out and do a new photo shoot for something, you can't really get people together in one place that requires. So they want to reuse a lot of the content that's already created rather. And so when you're working with that internal group, you're looking to make it searchable for those groups. And I think that's sort of the common thing, that searchability is always key whenever you have a human interacting with your DAM, which is pretty much always. Digital asset management requires, a session and appraisal, just like any other archive would. We tend to refer to it as QA, quality assurance, or quality control, QC. And what we end up doing is a lot of time we're establishing the guidelines that people have, excuse me, you're establishing the guidelines that you need to follow to make sure that what is suitable for inclusion in your collection actually makes it in there. And again, it's related to the purpose of the DAM. Sometimes it has multiple uses. You're serving different user groups. So we really need to outline and codify the specific standards that those assets have to meet. And then once you have those guidelines, you have to enact that process. So you're applying them in a methodical way, always with the current and future reuse in mind, and taking steps to address any flaws and errors that you might get in those assets. So if it's the wrong file format, you can kind of push it back, ask them to republish it. Sometimes you can kind of clean the asset up with the metadata to make sure that it's in the standard that you need, that will enable it to flow where it needs to go and enable people to find it. And very closely related to that is the collection, curation, and analysis, what in DAM world we call asset lifecycle. You're going to find things to deaccession. You've got to identify assets that need to be removed, whether because their products are no longer in line with what your offering is. Sometimes you have photographer or model licenses that expire and you no longer have the rights to use that image. And sometimes companies just have a visual evolution. They may shoot in a certain light, in a certain scheme, and then they want to change their branding. And so we have to constantly remove those and make sure that at the same time that we're removing it, that we know where the gaps are in the collection as well. And this is probably my favorite part of it, is that you really get to partner with contributors. And so we get to really work with the content creators. And I think I'm running out of time. I apologize for running over. So just want to throw out, if this sounds like fun to you, just please reach out to us. We have about a third of our current managed services employees do come from this background. And like I said, everybody uses digital asset management. It is very, very relevant. So apologies for running over.
Okay, no worries. That was quite a bit to pack into such a short form presentation. But we actually have plenty of time to kind of follow up for our Q&A. So I anticipate folks have questions for all of our presenters. So we'll go ahead and get started with the Q&A. We have about, it looks like 18 minutes remaining for questions. If you have a question, feel free to put them in the chat or utilize the Q&A feature. We actually already have 3 questions lined up now. For clarity, if you would direct your question to a particular presentation, for example, please refer to first presenter or the second presenters when you ask a question. I will go ahead and open up the floor for questions now if our presenters would like to return to their screens. Our first couple of questions are for the second group of presenters. Tamara Livingston has a 2-parter for you all. Her first question is, did you use the Board of Regents records retention guidelines to help you appraise your collections?
Yes, we are using those. That was in Summer's initial proposal. That is what she had suggested, and that is what I have been going by.
And the second question she asks, how are you managing digitized collections as far as storage and access?
So storage wise, we are first saving everything to 2 different hard drives. So we have backups of everything. We also have a site through Omeka that we're using to share all of the information with the public. And that has been really popular this year because this is our 50th anniversary year. So a lot of people have been turning to that to look at documents and photos.
Our next question is for the same group from Jill Sweetapple. How long have you guys been without an archivist?
And it's been since 2014 was that year. So when I started on the project, it had been 4 years.
A third question from Tamara for the same group. How do you manage digital preservation for assets you want to keep for a long time? Are they moved to a different system for preservation activities?
Right now, they're not. But again, we're still in the early stages of this. A lot of stuff has been coming up because of the 50th. A lot of people didn't seem to have a lot of interest in the archives until the 50th came up, but people in the library were advocating for it. Now they're seeing that there is a benefit to it. So we're having to backtrack a lot, and doing that is one of the things on our list.
My mistake, that was actually for the third presenter, but I liked hearing that answer from you
Oh,
guys.
I'm so sorry.
No, that was my fault. That was my fault. So the same question for the third presenter, which I believe is Kathleen. How do you manage digital preservation for assets you want to keep for a long time? Are they moved to a different system for preservation activities?
A lot of that does depend on the organization and what the media is that you're archiving. I worked in sports broadcasting for a while, and so it was a lot of HD video. So storing like hours and hours of games on like nearline storage was very expensive. So for anything that was regarded as archive worthy, we did roll off, as we said, to a different type of storage that was a little bit slower and a whole lot cheaper to keep a hold of it. What I've also seen is when we're just storing still images, sometimes it's a different storage unit, but very often it's all cloud-based. So what you're doing is you're just sort of segregating it away from what we would consider the active collection, just to make sure that you're enabling your end users to have the best experience possible and they're not having to wade through the older information. One thing that we have learned is metadata is very important to searchability, but a lot of users are not going to read explanations within the metadata. So if you're relying on an explanation of how to use it and when to use certain assets, and you're relying on your end users to read that and abide by it, it's not the best idea. So we do try to kind of move it away from the sort of active collection for reference for later.
Those are our questions in the queue. Are there any other questions in the chat for any of our presenters today? Since we have some time, was there anything that any of our presenters wanted to add to their presentation? You had kind of a quick time. Is there anything you wanted to add?
I do see one for sharing my contact details. Absolutely. It's kathleen.shannon@icpnet.com. And we do have a website. If you go to icpnet.com/careers, there'll be, if you're looking for positions. And ICP does work in a broad spectrum. We do some creative operations as well as managed services and digital asset management consulting. So we're always looking for good people.
And we did have another question pop up during that time. For the first presenter, can you give more examples of suitable projects?
Of course. It really is kind of all over the place. We just had a newsworthy project from 2016 released as a pilot. Columbia University is investigating copyright and copyright compliance, making it a lot easier. And so we were working with Columbia University to kind of figure that out together, and now they're doing a pilot, and you can read all about that at the Lyrasis website. Another fantastic project, just to show you kind of the scale of projects we work with, all different sizes of organizations. So Johnson C. Smith University, which I believe is in the Charlotte area of North Carolina. One of their projects received a Catalyst Fund, and that was to create a digital map of their historic historic neighborhood in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so they made a mobile app, which also includes a lot of images, digitization, articles, things like that, and it's all available. So if you want to create your own digital map and use their template, their code and everything is on our website, and it makes it a lot easier to have kind of a process and a frame to follow. So this year, the 2020 Catalyst funded projects that we just funded in June, a lot of them have to do with accessibility. So a lot of projects that focused on like OCR and things like that, those projects were funded. And again, the reason for that is because of the Leader Circle, our top tier membership level. They are the ones who vote on the projects. They also determine our research for the year. So last year, their main research project was diversity, access, and equity. So it made a lot of sense that they chose projects that had to deal with accessibility issues. So it'll be really exciting to see which direction projects go for 2021. but they really are all over the place. It's really to solve any type of problem, positive or negative, in the GLAM community. And again, it's seed funding. So let's start small, or let's think really big and see where we can go together with these projects.
Once again, it looks like we cleared up our Q&A queue. If any of our presenters would like to add anything to this discussion.
This is Jen, first presenter. I'm just adding in the Zoom chat window, the main website for the Catalyst Fund, so you can see the criteria, you can see all the different projects that have been funded and how to be a reviewer.
Okay, well, I think that just about wraps up our last short form presentation today. Again, I want to thank all of our presenters this morning for sharing with us. And everyone, if you have questions, please feel free to follow up with any of our presenters if you have additional questions or comments you would like to share.